Good evening, and thank you for enjoying it with a six pack. The Scotty Six Pack, the only podcast talking all things Wisconsin sports at you 6 days a week. I'm your host, Kedrick Stumbers. You can find me on the website formerly known as Twitter at Kedrick Stumbers and follow the podcast at Scotty Six Pack for the latest updates in Wisconsin sports. I am rocking my Nashville Sounds throwback hat tonight on it's a throwback Thursday down there. At what are they? Are they fifth, third? I don't remember. Down in Nashville. Great ballpark to get to, but we are here to talk about the Wisconsin Badgers. Talking about the non-conference schedule released today. We knew most of the opponents that were going to be on there. Looks like the Badgers are taking it easy, trying to stack some wins before they get to Big Ten play. But is that a mistake? Is that a potential pitfall for a team that I think is probably a bubble team for the NCAA tournament? Let's break it down here on the Scotty Six Pack podcast. While you're here watching live on YouTube, youtube.com/@Scotty6Pack, or by following me on the website formerly known as Twitter at Kedrick Stumbers. Engage with us on the website formerly known as Twitter. Hit that like, hit that retweet. Let some friends know to let some friends know. You can also subscribe to us on YouTube. Always free. Hit that like button. So we get more people talking about our three big takeaways from the Wisconsin Badgers non-conference schedule and why I think just maybe Gard got it wrong. But we're going to start with where they may have gotten it a little bit right, may have gotten things going their direction. And that is some of the only difficult opponents on Wisconsin's schedule have some real question marks to their roster. And they are question marks similar to those that the Badgers have. And it's largely the front court. Large front court. That's my bad. That one's on me. I did that to myself. And it starts with the game that we knew we were going to get, the return from the Arizona Wildcats and Tommy Lloyd coming to the Kohl Center after Wisconsin got drubbed in the McHale Center last year. And the other premier opponent appearing on Wisconsin's schedule, the only other quad 1A game that the Badgers are going to play in the non-con, will be at Marquette. And Arizona is largely intact from its backcourt. They're bringing back Caleb Love. They're bringing back Kylan Boswell. They have it to, oh, sorry, not Kylan Boswell. He is leaving for the Fighting Illini. But really, the big loss there is you are losing Omar Ballo in the front court, who has transferred, of course, to Indiana. A haul for Mike Woodson and a haul of cash for Omar Ballo involved in that transfer decision. And then, of course, Pelle Larsson, who is now going to be playing for the Miami Heat in the National Basketball Association. Those are big losses in the front court for Arizona, a team with Tommy Lloyd that, while it has a volume shooter in Caleb Love, has real skill in the backcourt, a backcourt that is remaining largely intact. That's a team that has played through its front court for a lot of years. Meanwhile, Marquette is losing Oso Ighodaro at its center position and replacing Oso Ighodaro with an in-program elevation in Ben Gold, who looks 6'11" in his own right, 245 pounds, plenty big, but not a guy who has played a lot around the rim in his career. He's taken a lot more of his shots from three than from two. For a guy who's going to start at center, that raises some really big questions. Last season, he took 117 shots from three, making nearly 36% of them, and took 33 shots from inside the three-point arc. He's a guy who really defended the rim all right, a lot of blocks, but not really experienced getting down and dirty around the rim. And oh man, I really wish I hadn't said that live. Shake it off. Here we go. Oh God. But of course, this all comes with Wisconsin that is going to be rebuilding its front court this season a little bit. Of course, you lose Tyler Wall. You're going to try to replace some of his play with Xavier Amos. Not to mention you have AJ Storr coming off on the wing, and a guy who can absolutely drive the basket as well. I think also some of these players who can really penetrate and get to the hoop, like Cam Hunter, your point guard replacement for Chucky Hepburn, is a guy who's going to get to the rim more often than Chucky Hepburn would as well, if his previous years of play indicate so. But all of this is to say that if you're also looking for improvements with Stephen Crowell, or I think we probably know what Stephen Crowell is, but you're looking for a next level elevation from Nolan Winter, for example, him growing into that role a little bit. Maybe we see some Ricardo Greppi minutes this year. We see a little bit of something. They're going to get thrown to the fire probably pretty quickly against a really good team like Arizona, but obviously Arizona has work to do to replace its own front court production. You do have Trey Townsend, who's going to step in to fill that hole of Pell Larson. And so that'll be a test for Xavier Amos, two mid-major guys coming in, MAC transfer versus a Horizon League transfer. And Trey Townsend is really good. Just watching him play for Oakland last season, he can ball out. And that was true even before the NCAA tournament when they took down Kentucky. That was true. I mean, in the Horizon League final, to beat Milwaukee and get to the NCAA tournament, Trey Townsend basically took over that game down the stretch of the last 5 minutes. And UW Milwaukee, yes, it does not have a great defense to begin with, but like they could not do anything to stop him. They're very inexperienced. And for a team with Arizona's pedigree, with Tommy Lloyd there, his first few seasons in Tucson, they have always had big men ready to go there, whether it's Azuolas Tubelis, Omar Ballo, they've always had big men ready. And this is going to be their first big test, not having those big men already ready to roll. Fortunately, Wisconsin has this opportunity to tune up against Holy Cross in the opener. Then you have to go and play Montana State, which yes, is Montana State. It is a mid-major team out of the Big Sky. Not a great team out of the Big Sky last year, apart from them winning the Big Sky tournament. They didn't have a regular season that really justified them winning the Big Sky tournament. They went on a run, but that's what March Madness is all about. They're going to be tested, though, with Brandon Walker, who is a solid starting big man for the Montana State Bobcats. Then you're going to move forward and play Appalachian State after that, which is a nice little step up. You're going like step up from Holy Cross, which I don't think is going to be very good. Montana State, which I also don't think is going to be very good, but you at least have a piece in Brandon Walker to challenge your front court. Then you're going to go ahead and play Appalachian State, which should be a better team, is overhauling its roster. I think they're bringing, if they lost 10 players, brought in 11, one of the two, flip one of those two numbers, and that's fine. And Dustin Kearns is a good coach. If this team wins, they won a program record 27 games last year. If they win another 25 games this year, Dustin Kearns is getting a high major job. I can all but guarantee that. But they have a really solid big man down low in CJ Huntley as well. But other than that, they're replacing a lot of guys with high school guys, JUCO guys, low major guys, D2 guys, bringing them into Boone, North Carolina. And so that's going to be a test for Appalachian State and that coaching staff to kind of figure out what they have on the fly. But it's a nice warm up for a front court for Wisconsin that I think we have some pretty big questions about, despite the fact that it's only replacing one piece. I still probably have more questions about the front court than I do the back court for Wisconsin, even though you're really only replacing Tyler Wall, who is a great player, your most tenured player in program history by games played, but not an NBA player, right? So that'll be a test and maybe helps them get Arizona. And I'll come back to that toward the end of the show. The second point. This MTE sucks. This multi-team event, the holiday tournament that the Badgers are playing in this year, is just not very exciting. The The Greenbrier, you're going to play UCF, which will be a decent team, and you have fringe top 100 ish teams in LSU and Pitt. Maybe when you play Pitt, that's a more exciting game, but it's just not that great. Pitt might be good enough to give you a fringy quad one game if you can play Pitt in round two of the Greenbrier tip off. But yeah, it just sucks that you're going to play this MTE and not really have a chance to get a quad one win. I don't think, unless that ends up being Pitt. And it's just so boring. Like the Fort Myers game last year, yeah, it was fun playing Virginia, but that was really only because of the ties between the Wisconsin and Virginia programs. And then the second game that I can't even remember who they played right now was kind of whatever. Would like to go back and play in Battle for Atlantis again. I would like for this team to go play Maui. I would like for this team to, play the Players Invitational in Vegas with $1 million NIL purse, right? Something to get this team excited. And I'm sure this team is trying to get into the players tournament because every NCAA team is trying to get into that tournament these days. But yeah, these low level MTEs are just boring, and it makes a non-conference schedule like this more boring when there's not a lot of competition on it. At least last season, when the MTE you played in Fort Myers was not that exciting, you had other games like Tennessee, like the Gavitt games, where you played at Providence. You played in the dunk to supplement it. Now you don't have the Gavitt games. You're playing in Indianapolis against Butler, but inside Gainbridge Fieldhouse. You're not playing at Hinkle. You're not playing in these big time environments. And because you're playing that game at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, and I'll get to this in a second too, it takes away the ability for you to build your resume really like you would otherwise get from playing that game truly on the road. These MTEs are fun. They're it's one of the best weeks of college basketball, right? Feast week is awesome. I love champ week. I love the whole month of, and this is, wow, what a real hot take. I love the whole month of March, right? But I love it from the beginning. And sometimes you get those conference tournament games beginning at the very tail end of February. And that's fun too. I love watching the Big West tournament. I love watching the WAC tournament. These are all fun. The knockout basketball is great no matter what time of year you're playing it, basically. And to see these premier games come out, even these MTEs that include not Power 5 premier programs are still fun. But yeah, playing in these lower level MTEs, I am tired of it after back-to-back years. I would like for the Badgers to get back and play in one of these premier events again. It's playing in one of these lower level events is just not that fun. And third and finally, and this is my complaint. Is this really the non-conference schedule of a potential bubble team? Is this really the non-conference schedule of a team where Greg Gard is coaching for his job? I think he is, at least. I think if they don't make the NCAA tournament, I don't think Greg Gard has a job at the end of the year. I don't think so. And so is this really what they're going with? I understand it from a certain standpoint, where if you're going to play a tough schedule, night in, night out, from January 1st to, which also, by the way, there's no non-con games in January. So I think that we're not getting any Big Ten games in December is probably my guess. I think January on, after Christmas, it's all going to be conference play. I'm just kind of coming to that realization right now. But I understand from a certain standpoint of trying to not notch wins. But you're not really giving yourself a chance at decent wins And you're setting up a lot of landmines for potential bad losses compared to a year ago. Let's take Wisconsin's schedule last year, for example, in the 23-24 season. I think there were really 3 landmine you cannot lose these games. You started the season with Arkansas State, and Arkansas State was like a half decent team in the Sun Belt. Finished above 500, which is about all you can ask. So I don't think that's a can't lose game. You played Robert Morris, Patriot League team, which you're going to play a Patriot League team again this year. And I think that's a landmine game that you couldn't lose. You played Western Illinois, the Leathernecks, which is a landmine game that you cannot lose. Jacksonville State, and then Chicago State, which is always that landmine that you can't lose. So 4. If we look ahead to this season, I think you have landmine and can't lose games in Holy Cross, Montana State, maybe App State, but let's save that for a little bit. Chicago State and Detroit Mercy, which is 4. So really the same number. So maybe my point doesn't totally stand here. But apart from that, you don't give yourself like chances at big quad 1 wins apart from Arizona, which, to be fair, Bart Torvik projects that to be a 1-point game. So I think you hope your roster gels together more quickly than Arizona's revamped front court does. But Arizona has the luxury of having its backcourt really be the same folks on the roster. So I don't know how much that helps you, aside from them losing Kylan Boswell and him going back home to the Illini. You got to play at Marquette, where you are certainly going to be an underdog. One of the games that you're going to be one of the games that you're going to be the bigger underdog in than you are most games this season. And because you're playing Butler on a neutral court, technically, that game, based on where Butler is in that kind of 50 to 100 range, potentially in the net, you're turning that into a quad 1 opportunity to a quad 2 opportunity by playing that at a neutral site. And I know that Butler needed to fill that slot. It's not necessarily like you had the choice of playing, okay, well, let's play this game quad 1 or quad 2. I get that you didn't really have that opportunity to either say, no, we want to play this at Hinkle or not. But you couldn't go find that game. After you lose the Gavitt games, you don't have that. You don't get an opportunity to go play at Providence. You don't get an opportunity to host Tennessee as well as play at Arizona. And I understand you lost both those games, but you gave yourself the opportunity. And those losses didn't hurt you because those ended up being, all 2 seeds? Arizona, Tennessee, and Marquette. Wisconsin played 3 of the 4 2 seeds last year. That doesn't hurt you. Not really. I understand at a certain point the losses stack and the volume of losses have to matter. Oh, so yeah, I forgot that they also play UT Rio Grande Valley, which, look, I don't have any Vaqueros gear near me right now, but like, I worked a job there. My girlfriend is from there. I used to live across the street from the UT RGV Fieldhouse. That is a program in shambles. I don't care that is a team that, according to Bart Torvik right now, is projected to be 226th in the country. That is a sub 300 team. That is a sub 300 program. And until I see otherwise, that's where I expect it to finish. That's an absolute landmine of a program that is in the depths of hell under a first year head coach too. So you have like awful landmines on here. Chicago State, UTRGV, Detroit Mercy. You have at least one more landmine on this roster this year, and there's a chance that App State doesn't really end up being much of anything. And so you maybe have 2 more landmines. I don't get why you couldn't do something to give yourself a better opportunity to notch some extra win somewhere, some meaningful extra win somewhere. Hell, you had at least another neutral site game against Stanford on this schedule. Wisconsin was supposed to go play in San Jose against Stanford this year. That game's just not happening for whatever reason. I don't know. On December 21st. And I guess you slotted Detroit Mercy in on December 22nd because I'm assuming it was part of the deal where Stanford came to play at Miller Park in that pseudo neutral game. And then you would have gone to play in San Jose and played a pseudo neutral game in Northern California. Why not at least keep that? At least that is a potential to be a quad 2 game, other than playing Detroit Mercy, which will certainly be a quad 4 game. And then if you lose one of these landmines, like your chance of making the bubble is gone. You have popped your bubble before Christmas. Why? To what end, especially when Bart Torvik is projecting you to be a 17-13 team? You don't have extra losses to go around. What is it? The most losses that any at-large team has taken to make the NCAA tournament is 15? You don't have extra losses to go around, man. You really, really, really don't. And that means that if you don't have extra losses to go around, that means you need to win the game that you're projected to win by 2.5 points in Indianapolis at a neutral site against Butler. That means that you need to beat Iowa at home. That means you need to beat Illinois at home, a team that you have not beaten, regardless of where, in, what is it now, 5 years? I don't know. It's not great. I don't love what this team did to put itself in a position to get to the NCAA tournament. I think that there was an overcorrection here when you had the 44th best non-conference strength of schedule, according to Ken Palm adjusted efficiency last season. You're not going to come anywhere near close to that. And that's what you were able to hang your hat on last season and know that you were getting to the NCAA tournament no matter what, because even though you had some losses stacking, they weren't bad losses in the non-con, and you had wins over Marquette. You had wins over Virginia, despite Virginia not being that good. You had that win over SMU. I think you can get better wins on this. And if you take a loss to a number 5 in the country, Tennessee, that's not the worst thing in the world, right? You take a loss to a number 59 Providence, that's not the worst thing in the world. But when you swap out any one of Virginia, SMU, Providence, when you swap out any one of those 3 for UTRGV, and I understand that's part of the Greenbrier tip-off thing. So sure, but you didn't have to schedule Chicago State again. Maybe you have a contract where you schedule them like every year or every 4 or 5 years. You didn't have to go schedule Detroit Mercy. You didn't. You didn't have to schedule Montana State. You didn't have to schedule Holy Cross. I know that you want to schedule one of these Patriot League teams every year, but you didn't have to do it. You needed to find. If we're sitting here in Selection Sunday and having a conversation about Greg Gard's job prospects, remember this: you control your own non-conference schedule. You have no reason to complain about your strength of schedule. You have no reason to complain about your strength of record. You control that. If you want to give yourself better opportunity, you can take care of that. Maybe they looked at the numbers, looked at what the Big 12 has been doing, and said, we think that we have a better shot just by stocking wins, no matter who they're over. Maybe that's what you did. Maybe you ran the model and those are what the numbers came out with. But even still, I think you can swap one of these landmine games. I really do. I really think you can swap one of these, because this is soft, soft. And even your toughest games have really big questions. And so maybe you go and win those toughest games. I think you got a real shot to beat Arizona. And if you have a real shot at beating Arizona and you are able to otherwise sweep your non-con, look, all this goes out the window if you sweep the non-con, except for like a loss at Marquette, right? None of this matters. None of my whining matters if you can just beat everybody else on the non-con slate. But what if you don't? What if you lose that game to Butler? You'd much rather have that be a quad 1 loss than a quad 2 loss. I don't know. Just my thoughts. Those are my 3 big takeaways on the Wisconsin Badgers non-conference schedule as it was announced today. If you want to get a better look at the non-conference schedule in every single game, I did publish a story about the non-conference schedule release over on Athlon Sports, where I cover the Wisconsin Badgers. You can find my most recent pieces linked in the podcast description for that, if you are listening to this on Spotify, YouTube after the fact. Also, a little bit of Wisconsin Badgers women's hockey recruiting news, and a little bit of a deep dive into what the Wisconsin Badgers women's hockey roster might look like in a couple of years, how Mark Johnson is handling some uncertainty around the 2026 Olympics and what might come next. So stay tuned to this feed for all your Wisconsin sports news. This is the Scotty Six Pack Podcast, the only podcast talking all things Wisconsin sports with you 6 days a week. I've been your host, Kendrick Stumbers. You can find me on the website, formerly known as Twitter, at Kendrick Stumbers, and follow the podcast at Scotty Six Pack for the latest updates in Wisconsin sports. While you're here watching on YouTube, youtube.com/at Scotty Six Pack. Leave a like, leave a subscribe, leave a comment. Let me know what you think of this Wisconsin Badgers non-conference schedule. Do you think they got it right? Do you think they got it wrong? I'd love to hear your take. And until we talk to you again tomorrow, we're going to talk some Wisconsin Badgers football on Wisconsin.